welcome back. Okay, so I was watching this video by Myron Cook that just released, just published an unusual sandstone monument. Where did it come from? Where did it go? So rather than playing any of the video downloads, so here's some pictures. This is Myron Cook walking up on it over there. There it is. He sees it there. There's this structure over here. I'm going to point out things that I thought of interest as we go and then kind of look at the area. I found it on Google Maps. So it just generally looks like a current flow went through this region. And then there's this. So this is the region in question. So immediately I noticed this. I was like, whoa. Like if we go back here, they're not as sharp. They're more rounded. There's not a second one behind it as well. And then as we approach there, seemingly become way more defined with multiple shapes. So I thought that was really interesting. As well as we see similar shapes over here. So to me, I was just thinking, well, that kind of suggests a current flow also this way, like on the screen, right to left, going a topless for reasons that we'll get into. Then there's all these boulders back here that he talked about and was pretty main focus of the talk, but notice they're over here. They're not over here. The idea would be that this layer here is not where they formed underneath it on the opposite side, so they wouldn't have gone on this side. But I would say, like, more details seem to point to an aspect of this, of a current flow, not just down this channel, so to speak, but right to left specifically. So another image. There's Myron Cook. Then I thought this was interesting. It's got like a circular thing going on here, divided in half. Or at least a half circle. I don't know what's going on below. And then I was thinking over here, underneath me over here, this goes up, kind of wraps perhaps around this one, like a larger circle. It's hard to say. Then some indications of erosion. Focused currents, not just like random erosion. That would be more smooth because it's random and not like continuous. This is more continuous focused current kind of looking erosion, perhaps explainable in a more traditional sense by the materials there being more easily eroded. But I would say, like, there's too many circles. It really points to like a current flow coming in and etching out in the circular pattern in those instances. Some other features, maybe another sort of nucleus with the surrounding structure, I don't know, and that thing there, possibly, but he pointed to the bedding, the layering going relatively horizontal here, but then between it having a slanted aspect to it between the horizontal. This I thought was really interesting. I gotta move me again. Over here, pardon me, Myron. Like, what is going on? It's got like a spine. It kind of looks like a trilobite. Just in terms of like the shaping of it, maybe another spine-ish thing there, or a divide with more over here with another spine that's just not visible because it's gone somewhere else maybe, or I don't know, I just thought it was really interesting. This is another image of that same rock that was the circular, so I guess we can see it better here. It's got this, oops, I almost deleted the camera rather than turning it back on. It's got this circle going on with the inner circle, maybe even a smaller inner circle. And then just generally like an upper edge up there, maybe pushed in from this divide. Like it doesn't go across smoothly like this circle. It goes across, down, and up, creating more of like a petal, flower petal appearance almost. Looking if there's I'm not sure where this was, and maybe we can find it as we go through Google Earth. There's those things again. So there's all the boulders, all these boulders. Don't notice some of them. There's a crevice or a channel that the top of the hill is over here, up that way. And so the boulders, just based on looking at this, are not just down this hill, but up over here. He was pointing out over past the hill, which is a little odd. Like, so over here, past this, instead of all down in this crevice. I'm just looking at it a little bit. Maybe I'll make me smaller for this. I'm trapped. Okay. This starts over here, goes uphill, and then kind of levels out over there. Same over here. Just noticing, I don't know. Also, it's more level here. Almost like easier pathway over here. Like, there's not really these boulders in this area. There's that one. There's that one. But mostly the ones past here are down further where it's more flat. So those are the most interesting boulders there. And notice the amount. There's not really that many in here. They're actually more up here and over here. So imagine a current passing through, kind of holding a boundary. I'm just thinking why they'd be so prolific here but not have made it over here, like, at all. This one got over here, but it's also on a pedestal. Like this is that one. This one here is this one. So it's like eroded underneath it, almost like it had more material underneath it when it was first deposited. Like, kind of like these ones are on the surface, but then its pressure held the material directly underneath its pressure point in place while erosion happened around it, so that it's standing there like that. Like that. I don't know what to say about this one particularly. That's it though. And then he pointed out these horizontal patterns. He didn't mention the diagonal patterns, which I was a little surprised. These ones, they're really as clear as these horizontal ones are. These almost like diamond patterns, which perhaps in a traditional sense would be explained by like drying out and segmenting of the material kind of thing, where it naturally forms those types of structures. I'm not sure. So this is the general area. I believe what we're just looking at is that. Yeah. Over there. There it is. And then he's gonna go over here. To this. So this is a sandstone. This is a sandstone, but what's around it is not mudstone or something. That's something other than sandstone. Just real quick, let's zoom in here. Notice this side. So there's a divide. There's like one side over here, another side over here. So imagine, like I was saying, there's a current going right to left. And then it has a barrier that once it hits, it influences, but then past that barrier, it's not flowing into this side. Although maybe there's some other current involved going left to right, but... So here's that structure that he's going to now. Definitely there's something going on, but there's essentially, Matt, assume there's water going through here. Or certainly in both traditional geology and in what I'm going to say, this is like deposited, and this is deposited in a riverbed, basically, and then eroded to its present shape. Like it's shaped in a riverbed and deposited and then eroded. He also said... so this is this one over here. It also has some kind of like blockiness to it, but it's not the same as the other one. It's more flat. They're not like really rolling away from it. Here's some of it. Here's some of it, I believe, which also has these more interesting, more thick, like a single layer that's going across, and then that, and then sideways. That's incredible. Erosion underneath it too. Almost like as water retreated, it retreated to like a certain point of erosion so that all this stuff didn't get as influenced as below and created this kind of boundary between these layers, because that's where the erosion was focused or reaching. Some more images. This also made me think of Sage Wall. Not these images specifically, but we'll get to some. Like, the more we see this, the more it kind of resembles the blocking of Sage Wall. It's on a different plane, but it still kind of gives me that vibe. So he was just pointing out that this ends over here, like right there, and over there. So it's a block of sandstone that he said it goes into further over there, but which I took his word for it. I mean, I believe that, but it's he said it was connected to the other one, which I thought was really interesting. He said it's 610 meters at some point. I didn't take a picture of it across this because this is the end of it. That's the end of it. It's 610 meters lengthwise this way. And then so is this one. They're essentially of similar lengths to a point where he said, well, they were once the same, like they were together. So I looked around, I found this immediately. It took me under a minute. I was like, oh. It's like he must be around Bighorn is what I was thinking. And then I was like, well, what if he's like by one of these kinds of things? And I went into Bighorn and I was like, oh, what about this? So I looked down here, it's like, I don't know. Then I went back. It's like, oh, it's sharper corner. So I went over here. And I was like, is that sandstone? I think that's that sandstone. Is it over here? There it is. Boom, I found it. That's how it happened. So we can look at Google Earth. So this is, I just thought I'd make a video of me kind of looking around now. That was the objective, to kind of build into some things. So like, for instance, I saw this, like, immediately caught my eye. It's round, this rounded region with a sort of chakra type structure, like a shallogram, and then another rounded region. Also, it has a, smaller segment over here and then another segment, so this isn't just a single, even though it's all around it in this region, it wraps all the way around and then bends back. Even though it does that, inside of that it wraps. This one looks honestly like it goes like this, over this way and then back over this way and back, and then back over this way, and just like spirals out until it joins that larger structure, like a current. And then over here is another one that was, I guess, interacting with this one. So maybe like going like this way with this current, but then going in to a point where when this went around this way, it opposed it, so they kind of bounced off one another, where it goes inward and wraps in and just creates another eddy. And then over here, though, like continuing. And then this whole system, though, behaving just like this, where it has an opposing system across like a chakra. So there's probably some sort of chakra thing here. I was thinking maybe this behaves like a chakra, maybe even like there. I wonder what they're doing here. Like, they're doing something here. Over here. Where was it? There it is. Like, something's going on here. So this is of a natural resource value, whatever's going on in this. But that's right next to this thing. And generally in line, that's when I noticed this thing's really straight too. Look how straight it is and narrow. Straight and narrow. So then I looked up drumlin. It's like, isn't that like a drumlin? Like this. I'm not saying it's a drumlin. I'm saying similar processes appear to be at play here. Does this also get taller as it goes over here? Not really. But it has a rounded end here and a sharp end here. Very drumlin-like. Also, I believe this is the Bighorn River. Bighorn River cuts through it. Kind of interesting. Okay. So if we zoom out a little bit, not only like this thing points to a divide, like a current flowing and then running into resistance where it divides. Like back here. So some of a current, let's say, goes left, some of it goes right, and it segments these blocks because it was going like more straight, but then it divides. And it takes the dominant side, like this is the dominant side. Over here is not as like pristinely eroded or shaped because it didn't have as much current flow. It still had a lot of current flow, but it was the recessive current. Like when a current runs into resistance, it doesn't just divide exactly evenly. A dominant current gets passed and a recessive current that's like not as strong. For example, over here, like along this path, like this is the dominant current, but then it runs into resistance and branches off repetitively, where over here it forms like chakras, nuclei, some kind of nucleus that it just does in this process of division. I wonder if there's something of that nature to it as well, where it's forming a much smaller equivalent. But so, like I was just saying though, current's coming down here. Let's go to here. There's an eddy centered on Hudson Bay that's holding this boundary. And then there's another current going up this way, where this current is generally going out towards the Gulf of Mexico and forming it, like part of the process, but a water current during the flood, by the way. And where this current goes up this way and holds this space, basically. Generally speaking, there's obviously more nuance to everything, always, but generally doing something of this nature, where it flows up this way, and then it holds a boundary over here, while another current is forming during the accretion. Oh my god. Accretion of British Columbia and Alaska onto North America and other terrains, where a current was physically flowing here into this region of water at a lower energy level because there was no continent, so it had space for it to flow, and it was flowing through here. But then the accretion of this material into British Columbia and Alaska and Northern Territories, I feel like, isn't that up there? Yukon, a little bit Northern Territories. I don't know if it reaches that far. Pardon me, Yukon just gets forgotten. Also that place. But it pinches off the current and makes a current flow down this way, between this current going upward, but also not joining this other current that's swirling here and generally holding this pressure over here. So it creates this channel for itself that it flows literally through all of this, through the region we're looking at, across that region, but also through this region, across this boundary down here and vibrating here, where it kind of bounces off of the resistance of over here where this eddy is. Like it goes like this, down through British Columbia into North America, where it starts to divide and do things, going along that way, while this one goes over here, as well as it just based on, this is the Hudson Bay vortex eddy, the swirl and the global flood current that holds this space, while it also goes in there, it seems, while this one kind of goes around it, more so over this way, and this one goes in here more so, but it goes that way, and it just holds a boundary and then bends off of the pressure of an eddy centered on Michigan that goes southward along, and basically integrally involved in the formation of everything along its path, the Rockies, but also the region in question. Then it continues over here and wraps around and wraps in through there. Mind you, the global flood is the Earth's expansion process because the Earth does not function under plate tectonics, where part of the flood was to physically etch through the crust enough that it could separate. And it went out through here, created all this stuff, but it continued on over into, let's just glance at it real quick, into Europe, into South America, where it interacted with currents from Africa and Europe. That's what I meant. Which then has a path go that way, path go this way, generally holding a boundary of the water atop the surface so it doesn't cut down through, except for at certain locations. And then other locations it compresses with other currents involved. But then this current continues forward kind of vibratorily, where currents off of Africa go across, flow that way. These flow this way, bend off of the pressure, bend off and flow back across. And then like a further current reaches over there, which is probably, now that I think about it, actually related to the current from Europe, specifically going this way, while the current off of Africa that goes this way, the current goes this way. Let me go to the folder, and then bends off of South America to wrap around and interact with a current going down this way, and a current that comes from Asia, which we saw right here, from Asia going across and interacting with the current coming across this way, which is coming out of Hudson Bay between Greenland and Canada, severing those apart, participating in the process of cutting the crust. Let's just look at Europe. Let's look at Europe real quick. Europe, just kind of like this. Although I recently realized this red current is probably actually producing this in the opposite direction. All of this stuff, I kind of, now that I think about it, that there's a boundary here, kind of suggests it is this red current going up that way and going in the opposite direction than this purple current. But this purple current goes across Africa and interacts with the current going across Africa from South America. So they're different points of origin, so they go different pathways across Africa. That's why I said I think the one coming across that way, this one, goes further south in South America, where it then cuts across this way. Whereas the currents from this path, this teal path, wrap back around because their momentum is towards Europe, where this water's momentum is away from Europe. And it kind of goes with the flow of this teal one, so it probably doesn't actually merge into a single current, is my point. Instead, it merges, it vibrates out where the current going from south to north across goes down here, whereas the one from Europe goes across here to a point where it doesn't create like a smooth boundary to South America. Like, it doesn't hold the pressure as well as if the current was more direct. Let's say, like, it's basically going from here down to here. with more momentum this way though, so it's probably kind of going more like this. Maybe even like this. But then going like that kind of thing. I don't know. I don't want to get too distracted. But all this stuff's going on with this current. This current is also here, is my point. I just said all of that just to kind of drive home that there's evidence of a global flood on the surface of the Earth that can be traced intricately to a point where we can even distinguish directions of its flow on small scale, large scale, and everywhere in between. So, large scale, there is a flow generally going north to south, let's say, generally, to a point where it's flowing into this other current. Probably in part because this is pinching in material that's applying a force this way, but its momentum is already this way, so some segment starts to really pick up speed to a point where it like divides from the overall current, because it's probably ultimately part of this eddy is flowing in along a boundary of the Baja BC material being accreted over here, where then, because mind you, the Earth expansion process is the global flood, and it was from 541 million radiometric dating to the Holocene, pretty much. So this current pinches off to a point where it actually formed a divided current from the main current that segmented itself by forming an actual boundary, because this current is flowing in from here, so it's like connected, but over through here. There's also some evidence that it flowed like along this path, so it may actually even be another current, but that one looks kind of like it goes, joins and continues this way, so there's definitely a lot of currents involved. But the point is, this current flows this way, some of it gets out there, but it's not as at play in what we're looking at as this other current that's actually on the opposite side of the Rockies, so it's able to flow down this way. Some of it, that's because this boundary forms, where the pressure is relatively stable, like the distance of separation of this boundary, this outer boundary of the Rockies, easternmost boundary, and this river structure where pressure is creating this channel that's just cutting through in the water, but holding space enough to like push things over, while this other pressure is pushing from the other side at a relatively equilibrium, but then it bends off because it's a swirl ultimately. So like it's centered on here, swirling and hitting like at a certain angle, but the swirl is at a different angle like down here, so it vibrates more like it's not just like a straight line down. It has steps. A step where it was pretty equal at balance with, and then a portion where it kind of merged with. Like they stopped being so divided along this path, but then they really became relatively rejoined to a point where they were interacting, but also exchanging, and there was flow between them. But so that ended up producing this boundary that if we just draw a straight line, say this boundary like there, but then continue it, so like depending on, I mean that goes generally to there. Which is interesting, it's almost like a corner, so if we then go down here, it's like a corner where anything flowing along this portion ended up inducing a mound here that physically helped deflect it down this way to stay along, to create basically another channel like this one that divided from the main eddy, but it wasn't enough of a divided current to like really segment, although maybe it interacted. Maybe that's why there's like two vibrations here. Oh, actually, well, I got an idea for that one too. Cool. But this flowed down here to a point where it divided enough from this eddy, which also allows for this eddy to have something to push against to turn by creating an actual node between the currents at a like energetic balance point of some sort, where this current was running into this eddy's pressure, pushing it more downward, and then at that balance point it divided and created this mound. But then it held a boundary that went down this way, but then other current passed it, like past that current that's going down this way, into the space that current was providing, but it was running into this other current, so it could only go so far past it. Like it couldn't just keep going, at least in totality. Like some of it probably continued just like all of this is happening, but it divided enough where it went over this way in the space between that this provided, in this space, and created its own divided current that was flowing this way. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Which then itself divided, like here, like some of it went off of this bend and continued more in a straight path here, where some of it went off of this bend maybe and went more that way. Like off of this, or off of like the last second maybe. Like it's kind of coming in and wrapping around generally to go through there, but then some of it's coming in more sharply at this point where it, like in terms of the pressures, is its like last moment where it then really starts to run into resistance from the other side over here, so it really deflects like if you just spray water at something like a flat surface, the water flows and then suddenly it hits resistance. But make that flat surface, say, malleable and have its own pressure, where that flat surface then like took the final shape afterwards, like stabilized there and didn't like vibrate back as it was before. It just kind of reshaped according to the pressures, like Plato or something. Then it would do something like this, where it'd have a like final pressure point where the splatter off of it really happened. So that's my thought, is it divides maybe even more than once, like we're over here and then there. Where essentially a conduit of water is coming down through this region, through here. Whoa, it's got like an X. Almost like it vibrated, like it went like this, something like that. Whoa. Vibrated. How did I do that? This way, down into there. while some of the other went that way. Some that way, I guess. It's probably worth looking at it. Ocean currents. So now we're getting back to where we were. Is essentially a current coming in here. That's my thoughts. Is okay. I had in the past I didn't really know what to exactly make of this area to even like move forward any further, except for that it formed on this structure. There we go, this is probably the best one right here. And then Yellowstone is over here. There. With a ring around it is the key. Bighorn Mountain is it is I guess like one of these pressure points is on a huge scale where it has these rings form around it in the magnetic anomalies. But like this region, I was just like, it's just kind of some membrane between an anode and a cathode, or anode and a cathode. Dense, cold mass, hot, flowing, subtle mass or something. But now I'm like, wait a minute. This thing, as soon as I was like, this thing looks like a drumlin. Oh, is this it? No. There it is. The ice flow is in the opposite direction. It's almost like powerful enough water can do the opposite? Or current? Dividing current can do the opposite to what? I guess undivided current does. Would be maybe a good way to describe this because this is a single, like it's a single arrow, but a dividing current does the opposite. I don't know. On a fractal scale, I guess, or something of that nature. I don't want to keep trying to explain myself too much. Hopefully people are following me. I don't need to like defend that this is happening too much because I feel like I'm doing that a little too much right now. Like there's literally an X here, which it points to a vibration, and then there's even that, like there's that goes there, down that way, up that way, down that way, up that way, across there, maybe going more straight though. Just like a turbulent boundary. Makes me think of a shallogram. Just like a round one that doesn't even necessarily have an opening in it. Point is, it looks like like an ammonite in a shallogram, in a matrix of a shallogram. Really continues all the way here. It's a little more subtle here, to the point where when I looked at just this, it didn't occur to me this was like a continuous spine. Like it's more subtle here in this segment, but when I go over here, it's really apparent. Oh my god. Kind of goes down here. I'm trying to think what that might point to in a shallogram. Like I'm trying to envision it inverse, where the water seen from a different angle is really like this actual structure living, like a living shallogram of the earth. Maybe that one. Because we see like this at the North Pole in the magnetic anomaly map. Like a terminal surrounded by a void. Or that's what's going on these, where they're forming an actual void. Like this one, it doesn't actually make any sense that this would have all these smooth surfaces rounded out all the way around it. And then I see these teeth things, and it just makes me think of these teeth things. Like, huh. So currents are probably flowing more in these kinds of ways in general. Let's go back here, where they're flowing in here. And then I guess running into the resistance of like being across from the center of an eddy here, because that's like where its greatest width is, maybe. So the most pressure in terms of sideways, like from a sideways angle, as it approaches it, it's running into this pressure and causing a deflection point here. So some of that, maybe that's also involved then. And this one up here is involved in this point, but so is this one. And so is the separating current out here that's flowing into this region, which then bends, like, because this is applying a pressure over here. Let's see, what's like this, maybe here, 43 north, let's say. It just basically bends some back is what I'm getting at. So some of the current wraps around here and starts to like fill this region. Probably also involved in the structure there. So I was gonna look. That was my idea. Was kind of look to see if there's any evidence of not just in this area. Look around, see what happens. Really. It's kind of got like a chakra look to it right there. Anyone who doesn't know what I mean by chakra, I mean a chakra. Like this. Like a tiered structure like that is a chakra opposite to another chakra here. Although not always. Like here's another one. That one is where the current's flowing into the system to shape it. See the physics of a shallogram like 2 episodes ago? 3. This thing is incredible. But what I realized in that video was that chakras can form from like an overwhelming force in a certain direction that then induces a chakra from the resistance of it, like running into resistance. Like imagine a particle flowing, it's flowing, but then it starts to get into thicker and thicker like density to a point where it just stops. But the whole time there's just a continuous pressure on the opposite side. It then starts to shape the rock or the system so that then a chakra formed. So that's why I thought that was... I mean, anytime I see something that looks sort of chakra-like, I'm just going to point it out even if it's right there. Even if it's not like the best necessarily, just like taking note of it. So we get past that pressure point or deflection point. Which seems to cause some of it to flow that way, maybe. Almost certainly. Like, maybe even at its like greatest width, thereabouts, applying a pressure that actually overwhelms this way and starts to etch through here. but then as it goes through, it starts to like swirl and etch out while it also carves a way through, but then it interacts with other currents over there, but it joins some kind of exchange over to the other region. So some of it goes that way. But then what comes in here also seems to have something coming in this angle, I guess. Like actually managing to flow through here to a point where it etches at a width generally, but at a flow path, but then it runs into resistance of Bighorn. Like the density that way just becomes easier for it to just go in this way rather than continuing that way. Where it could, this current had a width like this, it was approaching this way generally speaking. So it should have, just based on that continued and eroded here, but it didn't, and that's because it had all of this density here to a point where it's even here, that it just was easier for that current to go over and into the less dense region and join the current flowing in this way. But there is seemingly some cross-current situation going on here. So the cross-current comes out while this current's going this way, or maybe, possibly, it's almost, yeah, it's gotta be going in. I don't think it's an exhaust path. I guess it could be an exhaust path, but it makes more sense that it's flowing this way. Because unless this is pointing like exactly at Hudson Bay, I guess. I guess it could be either, but even then it would probably flow that way. It would go out and join the overall current, so bend this way. But it goes this way in. Maybe this side over here is an outflow. Like going generally around and then back out this way. Where then it bends that way more so. And goes around here that way, and then kind of vibrates, I guess, because it's probably not that much of a current, but managed to get past this region and go out this way and go along this boundary and just kind of be the smaller current. Holy shit, dude. The layers of currents. Deducible. So let's see if that makes sense. That would point to that a current is going this way. We see a like bend. So imagine a current's flowing this way. That's interesting. This shape overall is cool. Wow. What is that? Where art thou? Region, I see Iron Mountain. I made contact. McCloud. Real close to Yellowstone. I don't know if it's actually. Anyway, okay. Pardon me. It's probably related to the vibrations here. So it even looks like they start maybe smaller ones maybe even, that start to get bigger. And then maybe go participate in this. But this kind of makes sense, sorry. Right here, like the way as it approaches it, it just has this bend. It's not bending towards this thing, towards this side, so that's good. It's a good sign. Then over in this region where this system is, it goes relatively straight. Like gaining momentum even maybe through this region and dividing, I guess, at the this is not it. It's up there. Mind you, all this stuff is probably even at a lower level, I guess, than its surroundings. I'm not sure exactly. It must be in the river region, wherever the river presently really is able to provide water. Generally speaking, is where these are, I guess. It does look at it. I mean, I can just look at the elevation, I guess. Oh yeah, 1,300 meters. 1250, that's pretty similar. It's real similar. It might just be where they were able to get water to, but it all generally is similar to this, even without the irrigation and all. Okay, so I just want to be able to account for the terrain, I guess. Trying to make sure I'm accounting for it. Then comes in this way, bends down across. So there's a current going across that way. And then we see this going on, this. Wow. So a current's going across this way. Maybe it's going in a swirl here. Or it's coming in, bending. I don't know why it would swirl that way though. Let's see, let's look at the bigger structure first. So before I look at little details like that, should probably try to get a better grasp of the bigger structure. Just to make sure I'm accounting for flows that seem like they would be happening. So there's a flow going in this way, flow going out this way, flow going across and in this way. But then after that, within here, it's probably worth noting it goes up this way pretty distinctly. But then it starts to run into resistance, I guess, of Bighorn. It's just like here, runs into the resistance, bends, runs into resistance of Bighorn, bends, and basically just etches something more like this to be more like this by just the sheer mass in front of it being able to deflect the intense current flows that are happening during the global flood. So it flows that far and then bends, flows, bends, and takes like a step-by-step path of advancing through here probably fans out of here. Like, it doesn't just bend around and stop. It just, like, only so much can get out the end, I guess, that it bends around. So there's also an exit point over here, it seems, past Bighorn once it gets around the resistance. Passes it and fans out. Possibly directly away from its, like, width, its mass at this point. So it's kind of got this preferential away from Bighorn kind of thing going on here. And then I guess just the pressure over here as it gets through, but also is pushed away from this direction, allows for some of it to flow into make basically this little fractal region over here. Like it flows back across this way, but into this, so it flows out, but some of it just like fills space that it can, since it's then gets around this way, and the pressure to the side is only from Bighorn is only this much. Relatively, it's not like the whole width this way, so it's able to etch in. But then it starts approaching this, so it's not able to really strengthen any further, so it just kind of etches what we see there to a point where it creates this kind of structure with some extensions, almost like an arrowhead. Incredible. But then over here, this reminiscent of I think last episode or so, one of the last two episodes, I was talking about current flow flowing this way across this thing that physically is being pressured from the other side by currents over here, so that it's caused to flow along this pressure and out past it, like continue along this trajectory, and like is able to gain momentum beyond this boundary. It still goes over here to a point where it interacts with the formation of the Hawaiian island chain to hold their boundary over here. The formation of the... What do you mean he thinks it's a sphere? What the fuck did he just say? So it seems like it basically gets out that way and flows over here. It even has like a further reach this way. Maybe another more wide expanse here, where then it flows down through this region around this structure though. Maybe some type of vibrational aspect that's happening after coming out of here. Depending on if it got out early or late, I guess. Water that was able to exit early flowed away because of the pressure of the bulk, I guess, and the protection of this. So that then it vibrated and did like enough of a vibration that it actually created this mass, like a particle over here. Reminiscent of the physics of the shallogram episode I was talking about. Which then just kind of expanded, I guess, into this whole region. In terms of where it influenced. Because it got past the pressure point and was able to fan out. Probably just fanning out like there. Oh, like right here over this way, down there, and just kind of contributing to filling the space from this current, though, because that's how much current was present here, that even though there was already water over there, it actually went this way, created this mass this way, and then fanned out here. And definitely had its own maybe chakras or things. This looks kind of shallogram-esque. But fanned out. Definitely interacted with other currents. Obviously more intricate than that, but like, I think that's pretty legit. Because it's passing the pressure. Passing this pressure over here so it fans out. I wonder if something like that happened here, where it passes this pressure and then it fans out and starts to flow more like this, and then fans out. That's a fish. Wow, it's a fish. Suddenly looks like a fish. Oh my god, look at that fish. Whoa. Whoa, all the way down here. We were talking about some stuff, me and Gary. Gary and I forget now. A whale. I think it was a whale down to here. That his son pointed out. Cool, man. Oh. Then like a fin there. Almost like a dolphin on the back of it. Oh my god, this world. What a work of art. Okay, so back here, it's continuing out here. But some of it looks like bends around here. Like it creates a current flow, generally around this way. So let's see. That starts to run into this current that's flowing through here. Over that way. Whoa. To a point where I guess it coupled with this current over here flowing in off of this thing. That way. And they fill this space enough that I guess what's being eroded and things, all like the stuff being transported in the water begins to compile and mix and like form layers, I guess, to a point where it starts to take more mountainous shape. I don't know if even like changing the atoms to a point where it isn't the same systems anymore. It's just basically changing it from like a certain type of rock, like sandstone, to whatever this may be. Perhaps some aspect of the process. I'm just trying to think why this is there, ultimately. Unless I just, like, interpret that it was all there, and it could only erode so far. Maybe. Maybe it was all there and could only erode so far. So it's not necessarily some new structure, more just one that was getting eroded into as it had already previously formed. Let's go with that for now. That seems... I think it's like a combination of them. Like it's both. It's being formed and eroded, and the whole of it is creating the end product. Like starting out in an equilibrium and then moving certain particles other certain places as it restabilizes in a new frequency kind of thing. I don't know. Like the Earth as a whole. Like if it just had a flood everywhere and everywhere became relatively uniform, over time that flood might be able to take certain systems, certain places, and really start to form them, and then they take form, maybe even not simultaneously, depending on what they are and where they are in the current flows. I don't know, it seems like it wouldn't be that simple. Certainly not. But maybe if it's moving the entire Earth, all the layers within the Earth, it ultimately is doing something like that. I don't know. But let's keep going. It goes around this, bends back. I guess it runs into it, similar to over here, kind of giving it a spine. And creating a boundary off of it. That then basically takes hold over here. Probably flows past it too, like flows around and past it and over this way. Definitely some paths generally pointing in that direction. Over there. To a point where maybe they got across. I'm just thinking then they held pressure. Like they participated in keeping a current that's over here. Generally going over this way. Against this pressure that maybe spiraled over here. I'm like, that looks like that looks like an ammonite. You guys are fucking with me. So maybe there's something of that nature where there's like an eddy off the side here that goes over and doesn't join this current, but actually flows inside of it and back to a point where this current and its current actually deflects it back this way. So it flows back towards over here and kind of fills this space so that this current flows through more in a direct path over this way. But it fills the space enough to actually have this back current path here and across generally. Probably doing it in more subtle ways too to fill the space. Like maybe there. Ultimately, all of this is probably just mapping exactly how it did it. Like the currents that were holding pressure here, like this. In the global flood, though, Like, this is literally water currents that were on Earth, creating like a 1, 2, 3 next to another eddy, 3 with a boundary all around them. So if we just go over here, like there, it only took like 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3 with a boundary all around them. And if we really, I mean, here's another one that's really wrapped with the same current. So it's kind of part of that system too. And really that wraps around this one. So there's like, but the point is, like, these are all seemingly, my thought would be, forming as this bends and tries to fill this space so it can bend back this way, because this current over here is flowing. There's a pressure getting through over here that ultimately, like, depending on the balance, it could be just fanning out completely with no, like, almost entirely occupying this space and flowing, so that this current really has to just bend. Let's go like this and only occupies this space. But it looks like there's also currents out here that are really helping this current go more along the path it actually went. At least in part, I guess it probably did fan out too. Now that I look at it, it probably did fan out like that too, in terms of its overall influence, but more so go that way. I'm just wondering if it fans out that way, if it maybe contributes to some other portion, like this portion, or this one at a bighorn here fans out and occupies whatever it was, like down to here. Maybe this one's fanning out and then going over here. Reaching the most, where it's most direct at the chakra over here. Like, it's trying to not go into the pressure of this system, because there's an eddy up here, there's an eddy over here of water, and this current fans out, but some of it, like if this fanned out further, where some of it went up this way, I mean, it's running into this water coming in. It's running into pressure over here that basically limits it to there. But essentially, like, that's why it's there. That's why it stabilized where it did. But I was just gonna say, like, if it reached this thing and there wasn't this pressure up here pushing downward so that it could just flow upward, it could just freely pass this and flow upward and create, like, one of these regions that it actually flowed, but it didn't, because it had to have a maximum approaching this pressure point, and as it approached it, it wobbles over here maybe and bends off it to kind of flow over there, but also maybe even across, like having some current go over here, push this boundary out, flow over here, and actually maybe even flow in. Not sure about this direction, like in general, but I didn't draw this for a reason, because I'm not sure exactly. Like, it doesn't have a real boundary. I just drew its general boundary, but I didn't specify the current paths very much. So it probably did flow down to there, too. Maybe this current hitting this current, like this general current, and this general current interacting caused like a balanced current between them that had a little more velocity that went that way to create this like path there. Is that like pointing pretty directly at around the center here? I don't know where to make the center of Michigan exactly. If I made it slower, like that thing. Like in terms of this path, maybe it's more related to something like that. Like the maximum boundary current of a combination of these two going that way, but getting a little more into this system than other places, so it then has this effect. Then going this way, fanning out. Okay, so we got all these things going on over here, occupying space. So this current goes through here more so, though. And then I guess it fans out somewhat. That way. Where it again interacts with this cross current, creating like a vibration to this fanning out current. Where it kind of takes like a path like there. Wow, this detail. Fanning out generally here. And then maybe also doing there. Maybe something over here too. I don't know. There. Whoa. It almost looks like, again, like the wave, like a particle, and then a no particle. Something. I don't know. I'm just thinking, like, is it possible that some of this just took the perfect path to over to the center here, where it actually got to it and spiraled out? That involved, like, certain aspects of this. But then it's all just imprinted. Wow. Mind you, Bighorn Mountain formed at the KT boundary. Not around it. Like everything else is kind of forming around it. Bighorn is especially linked to the KT boundary time frame. At least the paper I found, or papers, there's probably, I was searching for that, but so maybe it's more safe to say is around, but it's very close to the KT boundary. So, I mean, my guess is this ties to why that was also when the continents broke apart because of these current paths and things they were doing to occupy the space of the crust until it was just filled with so much pressure that it burst, because all this water was on a surface smaller than, or yeah, pretty much smaller than all of the continents combined, because there was new material formed and released in this process besides water that like formed actual regions that did not exist prior. Although it's possible that some of it is gone, like deep underground in the mantle. That was continental crust. I mean, where that is, it's hard to say in an Earth expansion model if like there could be some missing continental crust. That's hard to account for in the Pacific without really piecing it back together across time enough to really determine yes or no one way or the other with absolute certainty. Absolute, as close to it as probably reasonable. Okay. Then I guess it keeps going through. Gets around this. Goes over this way. This current maybe finds a way across, sneaks across and bridges. Manages to actually just get across. But the further it gets across, the less it erodes. Like it's really running into resistance. It just manages to get through with just like enough of a current that it keeps flowing that way, I guess. Which leads to just generally etching behind, trying to get through though. Like trying to channel through, starting small, like a path, but there's so much pressure that it starts to carve and actually through to a point where it reaches through, but then it still has more pressure, so it starts to widen and form an actual channel, but it does it more like a shallogram, I guess. Like, if I could find one real quick, like this. Where there's a current flowing that initially starts out as just like a real thin thread, but it gets further through the rock in this instance to a point where it actually gets through, and then it starts to widen its effect to a point where it forms an actual narrowing nozzle channel where it's coming out of the nozzle end, the current flow, and creating like a widening shape back here. Possibly vibrating at times as it tries to get through. Like I was kind of almost getting through to a point where it actually forms a complete channel, maybe. Like as wide at one end as the other. I don't know if it would ever do that really, unless it really reached a perfect equilibrium. There's one that has it going in both ways. I don't know if I will find it quickly. It's been a while. It's okay. One way is subtle, the other is the same way as the last one, pretty much. It just had it both ways. It was even doing it a tiny bit in that other one. Just not as pronounced. Okay, so seems like something like that happened here to basically have, though, this current get it through so it could form like an actual bridge, something holding pressure, so that when this current coming over this way went down, it ran more and more into the pressure of that cross current, which got over the top of this, I guess. this pressure, it went over. Maybe even there was like a shorter path this way to relieve over there, then across, like continuing this way, so it only got so far here. Also, I guess it went out that way. Looks like it ran into like perfect resistance. Like it went this way, over, ran into resistance. And then this way, over, ran into resistance. So there's like a balance between them here, right here, where they ran into each other. Reminiscent of the Himalayas at Damodar Kund. See my Damodar Kund playlist, but right above this, right here, current flow going this way, running into current flow going this way, and branching out in resistance patterns that then actually even bend it opposite one another up to like right there. Same thing seems to be going on a maybe similar scale. I don't know. That's probably more energetic, but this was a pretty energetic region, so maybe comparable. So getting through there and putting up a resistance there, maybe even having some of this current. I mean, I'd have to really look. It looks like it gets in here and holds pressure here. With interaction, like they're getting across each other, it's just they're kind of creating an actual more firm boundary at certain locations. Like water is flowing above this to a point where there's exchange, but it's just the pressure of the water here is held back by the pressure of the water over here relatively, so it doesn't apply pressure in either direction. It's like a balance point, so it doesn't get eroded, leaving behind this wall type structure. So it goes in that way. So I'm just kind of thinking, in terms of over here, flows through here. I guess there's pressure in general over here. Like there's pressure flowing in this way from the current flowing this way. There's a current flowing from over here this way, going up this way, running into resistance and filling this space, and then going up through these paths, but going up this way. So it's coming in this general area, like even. So we're looking at Yellowstone, huh? Just looking at it, like, oh wait. So maybe there are pressure points, like this current was flowing over here, and this current down here was flowing into it in opposition, which then etched out maybe there too at like an initial time when it passed the Sierra Nevadas, so that the pressure was like, the current was held in here, and the current over here was held in by the accretion of Baja BC material that caused the current to flow more in this channel, and then this one over here was flowing more in this channel, and maybe they interacted over here, and probably even further off, just less direct. I don't know, but interacted over here and then continued across induce everything, I guess. Maybe. I don't know if this is what this is. When this formed, what, I don't know. But it just kind of resembles this, where maybe that formed and then it went over here and basically punched holes in the earth across here. Maybe it formed a dense system there so that the current could kind of reflect over this way, to a point where a current coming up this way actually had a current flowing up and in this way. And then rotation is occurring up here this way. So maybe this current goes up and in, but is running into current flowing this way, so it kind of allows for rotation to occur in the physical landmass as a whole. But in the meantime, it is punching these things at critical times as the process ends, I guess, really, because this is approaching modern day. This is like 17 million radiometric dating. As these move in, they really boop, boop, boop into Yellowstone, I guess. I did not expect all these things out of that video. I was just like, that's really interesting. I barely even talked about the actual structure itself to confirm if it really aligns with this. So it was over here. There's the one. There's the other. So these maybe point to this current wrapping around, flowing back across, and basically holding current down a channel on this side more so. Like just holding the pressure so that that actually makes sense. Holding the pressure for this current flowing through by wrapping back around this way, off of this stuff, and around and over, across. Just applying a pressure in this path, like atom to atom to atom to atom, to a point where it actually applies a physical pressure so that this current is pinched relatively to go down this channel more so. But then it over here it gets further because there's not this current, but then the current gets deflected in, so it pushes the boundary across from this current going across and this current going across to a point where it actually moves all the way over here at this point. But then over here, like off of this general bend in the structure, so this is maybe going more so like there, across to here, to that corner essentially, to hold this boundary a bit more firm so it doesn't get as much pressure applied to it from other places, I guess. Deflecting the current kind of like this, just on the fractal scale is it happening, where this generally went down this way, although it ran into a cross current going this way to exit there from this region to exit this way. It probably etched underneath relatively. Oh, it's getting lower. Is this? Yeah, it might have etched like a pathway underneath, especially to go out this way, to go over here and go across this way, and then flow this way, I guess, to ultimately be bent in the current to flow back over this way, although there was a time it went to Hudson Bay. see other Myron Cook video. So, whoa. Like, that's a major river in terms of it used to connect Yellowstone to Hudson Bay. I'm pretty sure it's that one, just based on its relationship to everything. Then I guess it bent around and did the step thing again over here, though, where it had like a final path off here to go across. To join that. And I guess some of it's snuck on this way, reaching in here, compacting like there, pushing in these boundaries. Flowing over, but interacting with this other current that came in this way and met the other one face on right there, but also branched out over there to interact with that coming in off of this back current. And yeah, just the back current, maybe some current going across there too. I feel like it's more so going off of this system that way. This even looks kind of like a lake in Tibet. There's a lot of similarities to my Damn It Arcoon videos to what I'm doing right now. The fact that I can do this, like, it's backwards, but it's really revealing. It's really revealing, even though it's backwards. Like the water flowing uphill and holding the boundary with pressure from both sides so that it balances out at certain locations. Then I guess these two meeting led to branching off in kind of like a resistance path this way. Which looks like there's like a spiral between that flowing off, but then running into this over here. Which is probably also flowing into it, maybe across this way. Like behind this mass here, down this way, pretty much straight across to the center, but then running into resistance, generally speaking, where it joins the eddy, but joins it there, and maybe also back here. At least tries to, if you will. To a point where it has like a tail segment, like that looks, oh, that's, whoa. Something else in there. Almost looks like shallogram features in there. Chakra. Whoa. This place is majestic. General resistance pattern there, though. Up that way, too. Oh my god, so many things. Kind of points to wobbly current. Maybe running into each other here as well. Some flowing this way, some flowing out of here. This way and out. And around this way. And through here, I guess. But like running into the resistance of this way to a point where it's creating like all these shapes, repetitive shapes. Like, where was that pressure point? Or that balance point? I know it was there. Now I'm like losing it. Oh yeah. Yeah, it was this. Right? I feel like it was a different angle that I was looking at. Oh, was it over here? Whoa, there's so many potentials. Where was it? Current flowing out of this way. Oh, was it right here? It was here. I was looking at it this angle, so it was here. So that is a different one. Okay, there's some other thing there. I was like, is this the same spot? It's that angle. So maybe some of it went around this way, up this way, ran into another current coming out around this way and in to a point where it preferentially went this way, generally speaking, and this preferentially went around it, but then it ran into that current over there and went back around this way, where this current was more so coming in this way to one side and going to the opposite side over here, going like that and over there to this boundary. Where that also, I guess, was going towards Yellowstone. So like a triple junction point. Whoa. Dudes. I was going to talk about Hawaii. When I started thinking, maybe I should do a reaction to this. I did not really anticipate this. So that would explain why there's a flow going across this way, but there's also a flow going in this way. The flow this way, I guess, is the stronger of the two. Like it's flowing this way. But then there's a current generally coming off of this boundary going this way that is not as strong, so it hits it and runs it into it like a wall and bends, maybe dividing both ways. Which then just spreads out this region where it's actually running into resistance. And maybe because the one current over here is flowing through kind of just like straight, it holds like a straight boundary. So this side over here is held relatively straight. But then where the other one, because this one is wrapping around and going over, it's also got a vector in the opposing direction to the first one so that it actually runs into it and slides down along it so that it actually leaves more of a rounded edge here where some gets around and interacts over here, I guess. Where other portions continue more so down this way to a point where it creates like a sharp point down here. To a point where it creates a sharp point, and then that's overall structure. Because one current is running into another and then dividing to a point where it has an opposing current that is flowing generally on this face, but down this way. Where on this face it's flowing, on this side it's flowing this way. They're then going opposite to one another. But this narrows because it goes from this wide region to a point. So it then causes an actual point where the current flowing this way across this way, like it's, I guess it's pressure point, it's where it's being pushed into, like even though it starts more so out here, it does narrow it down here from wrapping around and flowing back into it. It kind of forces it more this way, I guess. But it still has a flow out here. Maybe it's its balance point, like it's not completely at the very boundary. I was thinking it literally is very much like this though, where it actually has, I don't know if there's one that I guess if there's one that's just flowing and another one wraps around like and runs into it like that. It's flowing this way. This one wraps around and runs into it and creates this balance point. And deflects off to a point where there's actually I mean, they join each other. Even though this one's going this way and this one's going down, they like approach one another and like get more straight. They bend more straight a little bit and meet each other at a resistance point and then join and join. Not sure if that would happen every time. Point is, I'm just dragging on minutes of thought, is essentially they're meeting over here in opposing directions and creating this actual thin slice vortex of an ammonite shape, like flattened against between them pretty much, where there's like a gear spinning into the earth. But then it's happening on different scales, where it becomes like an eddy over here and an eddy over here. Oh my god, I mean, that's not really, like, I'm looking around for more of these. Where are more of these? Like, not like this. We kind of address stuff like that, I feel like. Okay, let's see. Where would we expect more of them? Off of the other ones of these. So maybe off of this, like over here. Might be a smaller one. It'd be hard to say if it was in there. Maybe back here. Definitely nothing. I mean, that's the only place it had the sufficient energy to create that. Which is probably why they're gathering resources there. I don't know what that was. Let's see what it is. If I check it out. Everything. There's some roads there. Closest we can go is the road. Okay, I had this thought before, but I didn't actually speak it, so let's keep going. I know this is gonna be a long one, but I'll stop after this, I guess. So I was thinking, so that's going on where there's that, but then there's this divide. So because it's applying a pressure, it's not like this system over here is the current flow is just gonna take it, if you will. Like it's gonna also divide off. So it looks like it actually in like a vibratory way even. Across here and then across it that way. And then maybe back relatively, and also going that way. But it gets through and interacts across this way. I guess to a point where it actually reaches to these mountains and participates in holding a boundary while another current flows above it, while this kind of gets over there and holds the boundaries, holds this current more in like a stretch over here that fans out over here to like that boundary, maybe another one over there. So it cuts through its middle where current is running into it and flowing down and around. So down here we still got the direct pressure. Let's go back to these pictures with that kind of stuff in mind. Now that we thought about it a bit, there's that thing, the current flowing over into this and bending off of because another current's flowing down the opposite side. So it even has like other bending points, I guess. Like separation process, maybe. Things that could certain amount of pressure that is like unit based. So like some of the pressure can get, some of the current can get past a certain point, but that ends up producing like a boundary that it can't get past that point. So it actually has like different tiers of the way it interacts because it's got this current is flowing into. And separates this, like maybe it formed this thing first, like in combination with the other one. This one? No. So this is, let's look at this real quick. Water flowing into this. And then these lines, almost like it's creating a swirl through it kind of thing, where the current is swirling through. In different layers, like, generally speaking. Oh my god. It's so incredible. So this would be the main current that's coming in through this way to that way over here, and then it ends up running into pressure of Bighorn and wrapping around and flowing back and across and into itself from right to left, influencing that structure there that had all the boulders, dividing it from this other structure by actually, I guess, accumulating material more so that it actually separates it, like etching a path between, but then compiling material between that widens, but then like is etched. I mean, if they were together, I'm just assuming they were together because that's what he said, and it kind of looks like they probably did just get physically divided, maybe shoved apart in the process. Maybe it started. Maybe it started more over here, and then the current flowing through on this side had a pressure the opposite direction, where it reached into this region, so some current was flowing back the other way from the current flowing across and into this and bending, flowing back this way, but some current was flowing on both sides from the main conduit past this whole structure, and maybe it divided it and moved it in the dominant current's direction, so more so over there. So maybe it is shaping it from this end. Maybe just kind of. Whoa. Like the current, let's go back a bit. Comes in, it goes over. Probably held a boundary there pretty well. Until it gets overwhelmed, so to really go more so over here, but it's definitely going outside of this structure too over here. Probably reaching over this way a bit more to a width more so over here, like to there. So it's really in the middle of this big current flowing over this way. It's running into the bighorn and bending, bending, bending. So maybe even occupying pressure over here, like as current flows in, it runs over here and pushes out this way to like keep space where it flows out further, generally. Against the back current, creating a kind of equilibrium that stayed in this state for at least a time. Maybe that's more so what the the Cretaceous normal zone or whatever, Cretaceous normal supercon, like this kind of time period. When the Earth's field was stable. It really looks like a person. Nose, mouth, eyes. Almost like a soldier, like a helmet. Or like a miner, like a helmet and a light. Or a rock star, going like that. Oh my god. Finger, 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 thumb. Something. Whoa. This Earth. I love you guys. Oh my god. Looks like it kind of started to do it there too. Like another pressure point there, like this one. Off of this current, almost doing a similar thing to over here. Suggesting a current flowing this way, just like here, like flowing this way. Boom, hitting resistance of a current flowing this way, which then cuts through it a bit. Current flowing in this way, but at this boundary. Like, I guess at its greatest boundary, as much bending even around this to go that way. Helping to just hold this boundary here. Looks like if we follow this, maybe off of this region even. Stuff going in over here. Going back this way over to there. this swirling this way from current going along this width and then swirling going up this way, running into all this current over here and swirling here. Clockwise. This even holding like a space. The current flowing into it deflects a little more at this bulk mass here, where it has like this kind of shape around it, like a main mass region here, but then just thinking maybe it did it again. Around like this whole almost like sending out ripples of resistance back. Bro. It's just in... Bruh. Seems like the current kind of got in here. Because there's this boundary here. Like maybe got in here, but ran into pressure, but it still got in, and then widened to generally influence this region. Like right through here, specifically, from here to over here, but then widening, narrowing, widening, and having like a mirror, like only etching this amount along this width that mirrors across kind of thing, where it influenced it relatively compared to elsewhere. Maybe doing it more and cross scales, like another one here, another one between them, another one there, another one between them ish. Like pixels. Whoa. Or like smaller forms of atoms, fractals. Maybe that contributed to this outline. That there was some current specifically that was going down here and was maybe causing a separation of material more along that path. Almost etching like a boundary, a shell, like a shell. Maybe that way. Held the boundary here. It's like going under into the earth there. So it's became more subtle. Like under a flow this way. Okay, I could do this forever. So I should probably stop. It's 1:30. I just don't want to stop. It's so epic. I wasn't even thinking about this place today. It's been a while since I thought about Bighorn, really, directly. I've been looking at ocean plate stuff. Found some interesting stuff, too. Like... but yeah. Alright. I'm out. See you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Peace.